Happy Thursday. It's Thursday, March 3rd, and we are going to be adding to our seed tray here. If you haven't seen it yet, we just put out a YouTube video this week planting this tray that we have so far. So what we have in here right now is just some hot peppers, and they're just starting to come up and out of the soil. Oh, you know what? We get one more thing. I have my book here telling me what's what. I wanted to do this to talk about some seed choosing. I had a poll up earlier this week asking what people might be interested in. So we're going to talk about picking what seeds you're going to start. And also, someone had a question about starting chamomile, which I'm actually looking at my seed packets. We're going to be getting some herbs and flowers going probably over the weekend. But tonight our focus is on some greens. So looking at this tray right now, I'm just trying to see what came up. So I have my little cheat sheet. So it looks like we have an Ethiopian eggplant, a serrano, my Jimmy Nardellos, and my shishitos are the first ones to break the soil, which is awesome. And one of the great things about getting peppers started so early, so we're in 6B, Massachusetts, which means we're going to have snow for at least, well, a chance of snow, let's put it like that, at least another month, if not longer, depending on how your season is going. This year, I don't think we're going to get snow for the next month, but we are going to have cool temperatures. So when I did this earlier, I think I did this on like Sunday or Monday, and we put it in the YouTube video. We had some soil left over. So I have the soil off camera here. We're going to see how much we can fit in the tray for our salad greens. So I got a whole bunch of greens here. I have lots of seeds. We're going to keep it simple. So I usually reserve this tray just for my peppers and my tomatoes because they're larger cells. This is a 48 cell pack. But it works fine for lettuce. By the time I need to do my tomatoes, I can just get another one of these. But we can put the lettuce in here too, why not? I'm going to get some lettuce going for transplant. So we have our lettuce in the garage right now, and it's actually still doing well. So we planted that, I think, back in October now, and it's March, and that's pretty good. It probably started taking off the most in December. It took a little while to get going, but the lettuce we're starting here for transplant is from a month from now, and we're going to be putting it outside, hopefully. The best lettuce year I ever had was in, I think it was early 2020. I was just like, all right, let's get stuff in like as early as possible. And I think we planted direct sowed lettuce outside in the yard in like early April or something. And we had lettuce coming in like with vigor through the end of June. It was great. So I'm hoping we can do the same here. I got to get some more soil for our raised beds. but there's no rush on that. We're just topping them off. So here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna put my soil in here, and then I gotta figure out which of these greens I'm gonna do. I don't wanna do cabbage right now. Yeah, I can get some cabbage going. Why not? Okay. One lettuce I want to try this year is this tennis ball lettuce. If you've never seen it before, I've seen it sometimes like when you go to nice restaurants, they'll have it. It's like a really tiny head of lettuce, but with like it's not very compact, if that makes sense. It's pretty cool. Definitely look it up. I also have some corn mash. I'm actually might just save this for if we build a cold frame this year. What else? Oh, I have another cabbage. So I have late flat Dutch cabbage and early Jersey Wakefield cabbage. So that's another good one. I haven't tried this one before. We might get this going a little bit later. Last year, I tried getting stuff going and spacing it out, but that was our first, trying to get stuff going for this spring in a new location. So you have trial and error, which is fine, but I know better this year. All right, we're gonna wait on the collards. I have some Georgian Southern collard greens. Those, actually, if you live somewhere that's really hot and you want some hearty greens, go with your collard greens. They're very heat tolerant. Some things that aren't heat tolerant are like spinach or kale or some brassicas. When you're thinking of picking seeds, you want to think of what's going to work for your area. Or if you want to try something that's outside of your zone and you want to experiment with some zone pushing, go ahead. Technically, if you plant any seed, you're going to get something. Is it going to be great? I don't know. Find out. Oh, I got this as a free seed, some Mizuna. I actually got that last year. Says it's a newly developed Japanese heirloom. Nutritious purple stems and dark greens make a lovely contrast, and the delicate flavor is unparalleled. Adapted to both extreme heat and cold. A small percentage of plants have smooth mustard-shaped leaves. So this one, and I think I have tatsoi somewhere. Right next to the other mustard. So I have some tatsoi. Let's see. 3 weeks. Direct sow during cool temperatures. So we'll get some of this going too. Alright. So let's do the corn salad. Let's do some tatsoi, mibuna, mustard, Mizuna. Alright. So I have three mustards? No, I don't think Mizuna is a mustard. Mustard family? Yeah. Alright, and then I have some Lucinto kale. I can't bring myself to throw this out, but I also don't like this kind of kale, so I'm going to find someone to give it to. So do a couple kales. I have blue curled Scotch kale. I find that this works better where we live. I've also grown Delaware kale around here, which is just the same as another curly kale. But this one seems to do well where we are. All right, so I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, okay. And then 1, 2, 3. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. All right. We're going to make this work. We're just going to see if we have enough soil for this. So, just put in some pre-moistened soil mix in here. I don't personally use a seed starting mix. You can. My favorite soil is Roots Organic 707, and I use that for everything. I think it's a good base. I would probably suggest using specific seed starting soil just because of the makeup of those types of soils is generally more forgiving to developing roots. This is a bit of a more coarse soil, but that's what I have on hand. That's what I'm going to use. I'm not going to the store and buying new soil just because I'm starting seeds. That's just what works for me. Let's put this in here. What else? Yeah, I'll do some cabbage. So it'll be good. So when I get my seeds started, so I'm using a greenhouse. If you want to see what our greenhouse looks like, you can look at our latest YouTube video. That's on there. It's just, I think it's a little taller than me. So I think it's 5 feet tall, 2 feet wide, and like 1.5 feet deep. And it has 4 levels on it. So I have everything in there. I'm on about a 16 hours of light on and 8 hours of light off cycle, which works for seedlings. I usually do around 15 hours. I have to go get myself a new timer for my light. Right now I'm just unplugging it and turning it off when I go to work. So that's okay for now. I'll go pick up a timer over the weekend. A different video I kind of talked about this, but you want a longer light cycle for seedlings, except when you're growing onions, because onions, you basically can say that they're light activated, or if they get a certain amount of hours, they'll start bulbing. It depends if you're getting, long day, short day, or intermediate day onions. But I talk about that in another video. As far as the seedlings that we're doing right now, it's fine. But when I had, so back to lettuce though, when I had my best lettuce year ever, direct sowing them in the early spring, I was thinking to myself, well, I could start with more mature plants also in the early spring. And then, I don't have to wait a month to start harvesting them, And lettuce is fairly cold hardy. They do well with cool nights. My plan for these greens is once they're big enough, we're going to go ahead and harden them off, put them out in the garden, and then also put some cloth over them during the nights just to help avoid any frost. I did read a good book, though, that said if you do have greens growing outside, especially hardier greens, and they happen to freeze, wait for them to defrost during the day before you pick them, and the plant will pretty much regenerate itself. But if you cut it while the plant is still frozen, well, inside it's going to turn to mush. So we're going to try that out and see if this book was accurate. And it looks like we do have enough soil for this whole rest of this tray, and actually have an extra spot over here. This is great. Another good part of getting your seeds started at home is you can grow pretty much whatever you want as long as you can find the seeds for it. You're not limited to what they have in the store. And this is not any kind of hate towards buying your seedlings from big box stores. I still every year go pick up at least one thing from the stores as I'm walking by. But I like to try new things every year, so I like to do seed starting. And even, with like our peppers, if something goes wrong, since we're so early, I have time to germinate more seeds, and then I still get to grow that pepper. So I'm going to go ahead and wash my hands. I'm going to be right back. Alrighty. So I see a lot online of people like really struggling with picking seeds, and like I get it. I go and buy seeds and I never know what I want. But you never know what's going to work with where you're at, what you have the capacity to handle, and like keep an eye on until you do it. So do it. And if you fail, you're going to fail, and that's fine. And everyone's going to fail. I don't care how good of a gardener you are. There's a learning curve to everything. My best recommendation is to go and look up gardeners in your own area. So, like, for example, if you're a zone 6, where that's 6A, 6B, watch people like me in that area, and you can see where it grows well in our gardens, or what's like a total flop, right? I'll be straight up. I'll tell you what works and what doesn't work. Go on discussion groups, being like, hey, I live in this area. I want to grow this variety. What can I do? Now, I'll be honest. If you go on discussion groups and you ask people if you can do something, you're going to get one of two answers. You're going to get absolutely not. You can't grow that there. That's impossible. And you'll get like someone who's like, yeah, I grow that perfectly every year. Do the trial and error. Take everything with a grain of salt. I'll tell you, not everything is impossible. For example, I grow tropical fruits up here in Massachusetts. And the way I do that is bringing them in the winter. They do absolutely fine in the summer. I still have young plants. Certain tropical fruits have trees where they only really do well when they get to be like 20 feet tall or more. And I don't have the space for that right now. But what I can do is keep them alive until I can plant them somewhere else. But you can grow them up here. It's not impossible. So keep that in mind when you're thinking of anything you want to grow. Most importantly, grow food that you like to eat. Like if you're someone and you like love jalapeno poppers, you really want to make cowboy candy, maybe you just like eating jalapenos straight up. Maybe you're one of those people who likes to show everyone how hot of food you can eat, right? Grow jalapenos. You can find a way. You can zone push. If you're in a place that's a bit cooler and you want to grow something that likes it a bit hotter, figure out how to make a little mini zone around it, right? Maybe put it in its own little tiny greenhouse. Maybe put it somewhere where you can keep it near a heater. Maybe that means growing it inside. You can grow pretty much anything. I keep trying to write down the seed I just put in the container. All right, white Vienna kohlrabi. My kohlrabi didn't do super great last year, but that's because our raised beds were new, and I definitely didn't put enough soil in them, like real soil. I have cardboard on the bottom, as much like sticks and wood as I could gather, a layer of leaves and compost, and then I had maybe like a 2-inch layer of soil on the top. Let me tell you, not enough for my brassicas. And I added some mulch on top, like way too late. So this year, I'm doing a thicker layer of soil on top. All right, we're doing a direct sow. Oh, what's today? March 3rd. All right. So we have our kohlrabi there. Okay. Let's do our other kohlrabis. It's really, I think the best thing to do, and this is how I kind of started looking at seeds and what seeds I wanted to do, just go on the different seed websites. You can find them online. I've been using Pine Tree and my gardener. I have another one over here. Who are you? Baker Creek. I've been using them for years. They're very reliable. I don't necessarily know if any company is better than anyone else. I think everyone just has different, sometimes different strains of stuff that other companies might not have. I think the only place I would have caution of getting your seeds from is like random people on Amazon or eBay. I think if you go with a designated seed company, you're pretty safe. I don't care who they are. I'll tell you one company that's kind of funny to me is, I think it's called Patriot Seeds, because you go to their website, and I haven't bought from them in the last couple years, but like I was looking at them, I'm like, there's no way I'm actually getting seeds from them. This is like a very simple website. And all the seeds I got were great, and they came in like a very timely manner. So as long as it's like a designated seed website, you're good. There's this Cossack kohlrabi. I'm excited for the Cossack kohlrabi. It's supposed to be like a really big one. We have a huge issue with cabbage loopers where we are, and cucumber beetles and potato beetles. Those are the big three. And like last year was the first year we had like a really big garden on this property, and they were there like immediately because we're in an agricultural area, so it's gonna zone in. But I'm better prepared this year. I got some plans, and my plans are mostly to cover them up as they're growing and to be more diligent with spraying them with like Castile soap as needed. I think my worst part about me and the way I garden is I'm usually just like, oh, it's going to be fine. We'll just spray it off. And then sometimes things aren't fine. But about like 75% of the time they are, so it's just not as motivated. So I also have purple Vienna kohlrabi, so I have our 3 kohlrabis. And if I remember, I say 55 to 60 days to maturity. So this is going to be perfect because I can grow them in here, put them in pots, and grow them on my porch, or even in the raised beds as an early crop, before it gets too hot out, because they did not do well in the heat last year. So I was thinking that they would just be like a fall crop for me, because I'm planning for like a large fall brassica harvest. But they might not necessarily have to be, so I might just grow them in pots on my porch, because the way my house is oriented, it'll get sun during the day, but not as direct or head on. So it'll like be in the shade most of the day and get some sun in the afternoon, so it's not going to heat up quite as much. All right. Purple Vienna. Let me see if I can spin this around, because I want you to see how I'm putting these seeds on here. Let's see. Okay. So if you can see here, let's get my pen out. For these kohlrabis, I'm doing little clusters here. So what I'm hoping for eventually is to have 4 plants in this cell. And when they get larger, I'll be able to just pop them out of here and split them up. You can, if you're not comfortable separating roots, you can absolutely just put like a few in one. So you have like a 72 tray instead of a 48 tray. So it'll be smaller cells, and then they'll each be in their individual area. So that's how I'm putting these in. I had somebody ask me a question about planting chamomile, and I did that last year too. So let me get this out. So in our latest YouTube videos, we used Petri dishes to germinate our seeds, just using the paper towel method instead of using plastic bags. So last year when I started my chamomile, I just did the paper towel method, where you put a damp paper towel down, and you put all your seeds on them, and then you fold like another part of the paper towel over it to keep them damp so they germinate, and then you can take it off. And if you saw our latest video, you saw that's what I did with these. Well, when it came to the chamomile, I did like a very heavy sewing on the paper towel. And then when I went to plant it, because the roots were already going through it because it was a thinner one, I just took the paper towel from here, directly put it over the soil and covered it with a light amount of soil. I just made me a little soil sandwich with the paper towel because the chamomile roots were going through the paper towel and it was degrading. So by the time the flowers, like the actual plant, they won't flower for a while, came up and I could thin it out, they did fine. I didn't have to worry about moving these microscopic seeds over or doing what I'm doing with this kohlrabi, which is putting it on this damp soil. Now these seeds are small, right? Kohlrabi, it's in the brassica family, but brassicas, they'll germinate like nothing. So I'm not worried about them getting moldy, mushy, or anything in here. I know these are going to germinate in a few days. Chamomile, the seeds are maybe a tenth of the size of these kohlrabi seeds. They're very, very small. So I didn't even know it was going to happen. And I knew at least if I had them on a paper towel in a bag, I could see what they're doing and if they germinated. So that's what I did, and that's what worked well for me. I found that for my herbs, that is a safer bet doing the paper towel method than doing a full broadcast sowing on the surface of the soil, just because there's less variables that can go wrong when you're starting it in a controlled environment versus soil, which, you know, it might take longer for it to dry out. There might be competing, you know, bacteria or fungal issues. And you're really just not going to have it when you start it in a clean, condensed area. So when you have really tiny seeds, start them outside of the soil. That would be my recommendation. All right. You can see my laundry. I gotta put away here. So that's what I'm doing with the kohlrabi. And I have it marked down on my paper here, which you can see. All right, let's put this back. So what else are we going to be planting? We'll do some lettuce. We're going to sow the lettuce a little bit differently because we're going to try to get some more per cell with those. So I'm going to start with butter crunch lettuce, which is like one of the best ones, I think. As a fresh one, I think it's one of the best. I like it for sandwiches. It's a softer lettuce for salads. It's not quite as crunchy, but it's pretty good. I like it. This pack just doesn't want to open. So if you've never seen a lettuce seed before, let's see if you can see that. They're pretty small. They're pretty small. So what I'm going to do in these trays, I'm going to put those two on. I'll just pour some in my hand. And you can do this outside too. Lettuce is a really good crop to direct sow. I'm going to be direct sowing lettuce when it gets warm enough out. I'm only doing this so I can get a jump on getting an earlier harvest. But I like to succession plant lettuce through the summer because it's not like other stuff where you can get it and like store it for a long time. It's really only something that's good when it's fresh. So I think that makes more sense to have successive sowings with. But as far as this goes, we are going to do a little bit of broadcast sowing here. And I think I'm only going to do one cell of it. My hope is to get 6 plants. I have so many seeds in here. This packet is not just right for right now. This is, I'm hoping can last me this entire season of succession sowing. But, lettuce and carrots, they have similar seeds, which, doesn't really make sense considering you eat different parts of the plant, right? So the lettuce, you're eating the leaves. Carrots, you can't eat the leaves, but you're really growing them for the roots. Well, if you let them go to seed, like if you're going to do any seed saving, they actually express their seeds in similar ways. So carrots are biennials. So the first year, right, you can get the root. If you don't happen to pick it that first year and you let it overwinter, or if you don't live somewhere that gets like a snowy winter, just leave it. What's going to happen is the carrot is going to put all its energy into creating a stalk the next year. And it's going to be kind of like a wide, I guess, not like one flower, it's a bunch of like little flowers. And as they get pollinated, they make little tiny seeds, and they catch in the wind, kind of like dandelion flowers. And lettuce does the same thing, except it can bolt in the same season. But the reason why you do lettuce and carrot seeds as shallow as you do is because that's how they would seed themselves if they were allowed to go to seed in the wild. They would just carry in the wind and drop and start a plant wherever it lands. So I think that's important to know, how your plants kind of propagate themselves as you're thinking about how to get the seeds going and how you can mimic that. I mean, there's a reason why people recommend to do like a brief fermentation of, like, say, your tomato seeds. I know it's really popular for that, where you take the pulp of your tomato and you put it in a jar and you kind of break it up a little bit and you let it ferment. I forget how long. And that'll help kill any kind of like bacteria or diseases that are around the seeds. And then you can rinse it off and dry it. Now, if a tomato just fell on the ground and was kind of left to its own devices, what would happen? The seeds would ferment in the tomato pulp, right? Because tomato's not going anywhere. And then they would start growing because it would get water from rainfall or any other means. So I think when you're starting your seeds, it's good to know that kind of stuff. The lettuce surprised me. I let my lettuce go to seed because I didn't know it was going to happen. Like 4 or 5 years ago. It may have been, I don't know. I'm sorry. Since the last couple of years, my gauge on time has been terrible. I wonder why. Must have been like 4 years ago was the first year I tried to save my lettuce seeds. And I was looking at it, I was just like, oh, it's so pretty. And since then, I've like wanted to leave at least some of my plants to go to seed instead of just harvesting everything. And I've been able to do more and more every year, and that's been awesome. But I'm gonna try to sow more seeds and talk less. All right, what do we have? Slow boat lettuce. That's a good one if it's hot out, because lettuce doesn't like heat. I tried some of this last year. Sorry, it's a good lettuce. It's a frilly one. This picture is true to the variety. I also have some, I don't know if it's also called slow boat cilantro, but I have some of that. Cilantro is another cool weather crop, but it doesn't mean you can't grow it when it's hot out. Take advantage of growing stuff in the shade. People shy away from growing in the shade because there's always like, it's always recommended like grow this in full sun or partial sun. Let me tell you, you can grow a lot more stuff in the shade than you might think. And it does fine, and it'll get sunlight bouncing off of other things. It's just not getting, pounded by the sun rays in the summer. But that's another one of those zone pushing tips. So we took out our like regular landscaping plants. I don't even know what they were. They were like evergreen shrubs from around our house. And we replaced them with lingonberries and gooseberries, which in and of themselves, like they do okay in the winter, but I wanted to make sure that they had a better chance, just because I'm not familiar with those even being grown in this area. And the way the sun comes on our property is it's pretty warm there, even during the winter, because the sun is bouncing off of our house and reflecting back into the landscaping area, like just around the outside of the house. They've been doing great. I am so excited for the gooseberries. I've never had them in my life, but we're going to grow them, and we're going to find out what they taste like. And that's how I approach gardening. I have never had it before, and don't even know where we can get it around this area, and trust me, I've tried. So I'll just grow it, and then I'll have it, and it's going to be great. So here we have the tennis ball lettuce. And I'm just writing this in my book. So pretty easy. I'm just doing these lettuce all the same way. And yeah, I'm going to have a lot of lettuces come up. And I might separate them. I might not. I haven't decided yet. I might just cut them back. But we'll decide. We'll figure it out in a couple weeks. I had another question on the Instagram story poll we did the other day. Someone was asking about growing loofah. Now, loofah, let's see, hold on one second. I'll come back to these. Loofah's a cool plant. I've never grown it personally because I was super intimidated by the process of drying it and, taking the skin off and getting the seeds out. Just in the places I was living, they were pretty humid, so I really felt like it would get moldy. Now that I'm living in my home in a different area, I think we might be able to do it. But I didn't really consider growing loofah at all because I didn't think I could until someone asked that question. So I don't know if I have the space for it this year, but either this year or next year we'll grow some. Here we're growing the cabbage. And cabbage seeds, they look just like the kohlrabi seeds. So it's important to label what you're growing. Here's the thing about loofah, though. So loofah is in the squash family, right? So when you grow it, it's going to look like a squash vine. And I've grown a lot of squash in my day. Let me just write this down. When you want to grow squash, they're honestly, I want to say, next to garlic, because garlic is super easy to grow, squash is really easy to grow. However, it's easy to grow, but keeping it alive after that, that's another one of those things that's a learning curve, because anything can go wrong. Squash vine borers are a real thing. I've had those take out my squash, and it's really hard to avoid them. It's our late flat Dutch cabbage. The best you can do is try to cut off the area that they invade. If you don't know what they are, it's a beautiful moth. I think it's a moth. It's this beautiful insect that's red with black spots. Absolutely gorgeous. But what it does is it goes to your, let's say this is your squash vine, right? It goes in, and I found it's usually at joints, but I think it'll do it anywhere on the vine. And it'll lay eggs in there, and then its grub is massive. I've cut open the vine before. They're disgusting. I hate grubs. Anyways, the grubs will eat your vine out from the inside, and then you get a pretty insect, right? So gross. So gross. So here's what you do. So if you're growing squash, right, a lot of people recommend to do it vertically to save space. I don't like that. I've tried that. I've tried that. I've tried on like a low trellis and on the ground, and honestly, along the ground has been the best, because at each kind of joint in your squash vine, I don't know if every squash will do this, but a lot of them do. If you have it going along the ground, that section of the vine will go down and like root itself, so you have multiple rooting points as it goes forward. So if something happens, like you get a squash vine borer somewhere back in the vine away from where you're trying to get your pumpkin, and then that's further sections are rooted in, well, what you can do is cut it. I don't recommend this. I really think that it does best when you have that original point where it's growing to be its main root system. But if your plant's going to die anyways because an insect got to it, you got to try something. Now, right, just because you're listening to me say this, please take whatever I'm saying with a grain of salt. I don't know if every squash does that. I just know I've seen several that have. And I've seen others that don't. And I don't know if anyone's like made a chart on which ones do and don't do that. I've also seen people wrap their squash vines in foil to try to stop it. I don't know if that's good or bad for your plant. I haven't tried it personally. But, you know, that's why YouTube's a great thing, because you can just stumble across stuff in a video that might not even be about squash, and you'll get some great tips about squash. My favorite way to do squash is direct sowing outside when it's warm enough. And squash beetles are a real issue, and they usually come out early in this season. So if I plant squash, let's say at the end of May, and all the squash beetles come out, and these are different than the squash vine borer, they will just mob your squash and like eat it. I don't know. The adult bugs really aren't an issue. It's the little ones, the immature squash bugs that will they'll eat everything. So I find when they come out, and if they happen to destroy your crop, where I am at least, our call it like our bulk gardening season is like the end of May till about mid-September. So given that time range, if I have to re-sow squash, I can do it at the beginning of July at the latest. Now, not for stuff like pumpkins or winter squash, but summer squashes, they'll do fine. That's plenty of time for them to grow. But the first week of July at the latest, where I am. And so what I have. 1, 2. All right, that's fine. If I had one row left, I have 2 rows left. Never mind. Yeah, squash is cool. And, you know, like dealing with any garden pest, prevention is everything. Some people will treat their lawn with like 7 dust or milky spore to try to kill off all the squash bugs that have overwintered. So people say, you know, in instances where you have like a diseased vine or a bug issue, don't compost it because they'll come back. Just burn it. Or you can use chemical warfare, like using 7 dust, or I don't even know what's in what is it called? There's another one. It's just like a bacterium that's supposed to kill stuff in your lawn. But there's stuff you can do, but prevention's good. My favorite form of prevention is in crop rotation, just changing where in your yard or what container you're using. You know, if you're doing container gardening and you're replacing that soil every time, not as big of an issue. But if you're growing in your yard and you're growing in the ground, or maybe you're doing raised beds, just put in a different spot. My other favorite form of prevention is through companion planting, and not necessarily worrying about like what the best companion plants are, because a lot of things go together and other things don't. But really just breaking up where you put your plants. So say you have, I'll use this for example, say you have like 40 pepper plants, excuse me. Instead of planting all those pepper plants in like one designated pepper spot, put a few plants here, a few plants there. Break it up. Don't do like whole sectors of one type of plant. Instead, do smaller ones and divvy up, who goes where, whatever it's planted next to. You might find good combos you wouldn't have known otherwise. You can do interplanting. That's a fun one. I do a lot of that, where let's say you're growing tomatoes, right? Well, maybe all around your tomatoes, instead of just having mulch or soil there, you're growing lettuce or basil or some kind of root vegetable like carrots or onions underneath them, just to take up that extra space. And you might get lucky in that some of those plants are good at repelling or even attracting and taking the hit away from the plant that you really don't want to have the bugs eat it. That's bonus of interplanting. All right, this one is the Scotch kale. And kale also has similar seeds to the cabbage and the kohlrabi. See, this is blue. All right, moving right along. I am gonna hop off of here when I'm done sowing these seeds. So this is just the way I like to do it. I'm not gonna tell you how to do it because you gotta find your own methods. If that means copying someone and doing it that way until you're comfortable, and then maybe like changing it up so it fits better for like your lifestyle or the growing setup you have, absolutely do that. I like to do that. But this is just the way I do it. I like to put all my seeds in, track where they are, and then I'll put the soil on top. And once I put our soil on top, which again is pre-dampened, I'll spray it with a mister, but I'm not watering it in. I don't like to water them in until I actually see the sprouts come up. All right, so we got our kale, and we got our lettuce, and we have our cabbage. Move on to the mustard. I saw Luke from M.I. Gardener. He was growing some tatsoi, and it looked absolutely gorgeous. Like, I'm sure this is probably one of their pictures. But I've never seen a mustard plant that almost looks like a cabbage before. And I've never really been a fan of mustard greens. I know they're an acquired taste. Maybe it's just I've never had them cooked right, or maybe you're supposed to eat them raw. It's just that I'm not a fan of that certain type of pepperiness to it, which is kind of funny because I like eating hot peppers, but if you know anything about brassicas, or maybe you don't, I always thought this was cool, that brassicas are derived from mustards. So you'll see that the seeds are pretty similar, and I apologize if it's out of focus. It's kind of cool. I wonder if any of the universities are trying to come up with new varieties of anything. Like all the brassicas that came from mustards. It's just from people messing around and trying new stuff and getting a new plant and then like stabilizing those genes. So I wonder if anyone's like trying to make new kinds of plants from different genes. That's a good thought I have. I don't know if I have quite enough experience to start doing that. I'm slowly mastering seed saving. I'm definitely a master at it for certain varieties, but other ones, trial and error. Everything is trial and error. Uh-oh. Forgot to write that down. Let's do that. So I have little greenhouses that I can put these in now. You know what I was doing for the longest time before I put some money aside. I was like, whatever, we're spending the money on this. It's important. I used to just have this tray and one more. And that was the only like seed starting stuff I had. And then I had these 2 clip lights with like 400-watt bulbs in them. And at the time I couldn't afford to even get like a new light bulb. So these light bulbs are so old on here. And so my way to try to make it work better was trying to prop up the lids around them. Once things sprouted, wrapping foil around the lid so like the shiny part is facing like towards all of this to try to get the light to reflect more. And let me tell you, it worked. It worked. You really don't need these fancy setups. And if you saw our video this week, you'll see like we have these nice LED lights now. It's a full like standing cart. I can fit so much in there. I didn't start with that. Come on. This is a luxury item for me because I want to grow food so we don't have to go to the grocery store or say something happens with our global supply chain. And please, I'm not going to go on a rant about this. You know, I feel better having food at my house, having the seeds here, knowing like worst case, I'll grow it. You know how many seeds are in here? I don't even know. This is approximate 150. It's definitely more than that because they do it by weight. But, you know, I'm investing in that because that's just what I like to spend my money on. And that's what I like to invest in. Everyone likes to spend their money on whatever they want, which is why another video I have, I think it was like 6 steps to like garden planning. I don't think it's called that, but I have 6 steps on there. You gotta work with your lifestyle, man. You gotta work with your lifestyle, your capacity, right? At one time, I could only do, like, for early seed starting, I could only do 2 trays. I had to be really selective with the seeds I bought because I had such a limited space to get seeds going. And I would just have to buy the rest or just not eat it, right? And now it's different. Now I have the space, and now this is what I like to spend my money on. And that's different for anyone, you know, and it's not a competition, and it's not, you know, better or worse, whatever your setup is. That's what you got, and that's what you want to do. One of my other videos I talk about, you know, I know people who they only grow tomatoes every year. And they're happy, and they love it. And I'm like, that's great. You grow your tomatoes. That's fine. I'm growing for a different reason. And, you know, at the same time, you know, no one's judging me. So I'm not going to judge back. I also think that the skills you develop, right? So, like the process of starting your seeds. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to have Mizuna and the mustard, actually Brassica family, Brassica rapa, I guess. Why do you want this so early in the year, right? Why do you even want to try it? For me, I like trying new things. That's important to me. Maybe there's a good food out there that, you know, will be a staple food for me. I don't know till I try it, right? I think the skills that go into your garden is more important than focusing on the end product. I mean, I'm not a farmer. Well, I guess I am, technically. But, you know, I'm not like a commercial farmer. Well, for myself, just got a new job. But, right, I don't need to think like, okay, I need X amount of pounds of this specific one, I don't know, like every month, right? I can just think of like, oh, I'd like this much, and if I can get as much out of it, that's great. But I don't have like a number in mind. Because to me, if I'm growing year round, literally, right? You have your spring, summer, fall, harvest, over winter gardening. You can grow different stuff at different times of years and in different amounts. I don't need to be as concerned about the quantity. But that's a luxury to me. I don't have a big family I need to feed. It's just me and my husband. And Boo Boo doesn't eat our greens. Come here, honey. Ooh. Hi. What are you doing? She's saying hi. I don't need to worry about okay, I have 5 kids. I want them to eat, this many greens throughout the year or each week. I don't need to do that planning. And some people do, and that's a different, capacity they want to meet or they want to prioritize. Everyone's garden is different. And I've also seen people with really small setups who they're just really good at marketing themselves, and it seems like a lot more than it is. But, for them it is a lot, and sharing that, and it is a lot, and it's great, and I love seeing that. Even seeing that specific scenario is new to me, and I've only been able to do that because we're on Instagram. She wants a snack. I love cats. I don't have any other indoor pets, but they're pretty cool. All right, so we have everything here. I have 3 more spaces, which I do want to use up. So I'm going to hold off on the corn mash, which I really only bought because of this book I read. It's called The 4-Season Harvest by Elliot Coleman. I got in a lot of gardening books this winter. And that one really, knocked it out of the park. There's some good stuff in there if you live in New England. Or even along the 44th parallel, where you get the same amount of sunlight during each season as this guy did. It's really cool. I would recommend it. There's a lot of good stuff in there, like how to build a cold frame, how to build different greenhouses, different ways to store your food, different food to grow. There's charts in there on companion plants, even what time of year to start different plants as a good starting place. Really great. This is not a paid advertisement. I was just really impressed by that book. Boo Boo. Disrespectful. This is my life. It's just moving cats out of the way. All right. I've completely lost my train of thought. So we already have 3 kinds of lettuce on here, but I don't have any romaine, so I'm going to do that. I did recommend not to get your seeds off Amazon, but I got these off Amazon because I just wanted lettuce seeds, and everyone was out of stock, and they weren't selling them at the store, so I was like, all right, I'll pay $10 to get a 10-pack of seeds. It worked fine. Actually, these lettuce seeds are the ones we're growing in our garage right now. So, all right. Oh, I didn't even put these in. Talking all about this one. I didn't even plant it yet. All right. We'll do that. And then we'll do the romaine, spinach, and another curly kale, which is it's called a dwarf Siberian. All right. There's just something about the potential that seeds have. And it's different when I'm just buying the seeds, right? And I'm getting excited for the season, but actually putting them in the soil and hoping they come up. And hoping when they come up that they stay alive and, they do well and we can get a good harvest out of them. That's always fun. Okay. This is Noble Giant spinach. All right. There you go. Cats. All of these that I'm starting now because they do well in cool weather. That's the only reason I'm starting them now. Lettuce and greens tend to come up pretty quickly. And they will give you an extended harvest if you can get them in at a good time. And when I say they're good with like cool weather, I mean like obviously in the spring in New England, like we'll have days anywhere from the 60s to the 80s, as you get closer to May. But we'll still have nights, 40s and below. So I think finding stuff that can handle that is good. Depending on what kind of lettuce you have, I mean, if you go and look at the genetics of the variety you're planting online, you'll find like more specifics about like what's the lowest temp they can handle. But you can also help yourself with zone pushing by getting some covers for the cool weather. In most cases, like stuff like romaine or like spinach, right? As long as you can kind of give them a covering so they're not getting like direct frosty weather on them, they'll do fine in cool nights. It gets a little more sketchy as you're getting like to the 30s and below. So if you know you're going to put them out where your nights are at least going to be in like the upper 30s to like mid 40s, they'll be fine. As long as you put a cover over them. And that can be anything. That can be shade cloth. That can be if you wanted to take like a plastic bag and make a dome over them. Maybe you got a milk jug that you cut the bottom off. You can make like a little greenhouse. And then the plants, the heat that's in the plant will kind of come out and keep itself warm at night. Just to keep the cold air from reaching it directly. Or if you're lucky enough to have a greenhouse. So we have a pop-up greenhouse, and that's pretty cool. But, at its best, when it's cool out, it'll keep everything about 10 degrees warmer than the ambient, like, night air temperature. So, let's say you're getting nights in the 20s. It's not like some miracle thing that's going to keep it in the 50s. It'll maybe be like in the 30s, okay? And there's things you can do to help it. So like there's a reason why people with greenhouses, they'll do giant containers of water and then paint it black because they'll heat up with the sun during the day and release heat at night, and then maybe you'll get like a few more degrees difference. We don't have that. We don't have that. So, and I'm not planning on growing this outside. I mean, inside. I am planning to put it outside. And you know what? Worst case, they die and I have more seeds. With my best educated guess, these will do fine as long as they're hardened off. And, we'll get more food. Or, maybe I'll be unlucky and the second I plant these, all the squirrels in my yard will dig them up and eat them. There's no way for me to know. And prevention is another good way of dealing with that. Fencing, whatever. Depends how much money, time, and effort you want to put towards something. And that's different for everyone, and I can't tell you what that is for you. I can't. If you're looking at this and you're like, girl, what are you doing? Just go buy it when it's warmer out. I think that's a legit observation. That's fine. Still gonna do this because, if anything, what I'm going to learn is what will and won't work at this property in the type of weather that we get season to season. I think it's still gonna, even being here for a year and having things like work out pretty good. I started this channel at the I think beginning of August last year. And here, the beginning of August is pretty much like the beginning of the way out of our main gardening season. And things looked the way they looked. Some stuff was looking great and other stuff wasn't. And that could be because of the way the seasons are or the way I built the raised beds. You know, I don't think they're full like live soil just yet. But we're getting there. And I don't need it to be perfect. Like, right from the get-go. Obviously, I'm going to do my best to make things come out, you know, as good as possible given my skill level, given my time that I can devote to it. If, you know, say something come up, and I just didn't, for whatever reason, I just had to prioritize something else in my life, then having, you know, good healthy food and like backup food supplies for myself, then I'd have to downgrade. Maybe, you know, it would fall to the wayside. I don't know. Life can change really fast. But for now, you know, I have a good idea that I will be tending to this just as well right now as I will a month from now or 2 months from now. And that is why I'm investing in these seeds. Because everyone thinks they're at a different gardening level, right? But it doesn't really matter so much what your level is. I mean, worst case, you can go online and Google, like, I don't know, when do I pick a pepper? Or how do I grow carrots? Right? It's an option. But as long as you can be consistent. If you know you can be like really consistent and show up and do the things you have to do to manage like a few heads of lettuce, awesome. But if you know you can't expend that same energy towards something more, time consuming, like growing herbs or medicinal flowers, which those are really only time consuming because you have to pick them like every single day. You know, maybe not grow those. You can buy them. Maybe someone you know can grow them and you'll grow something else and you guys will trade. Get some bartering action there. That's fine too. Nobody needs to be an expert at every single plant. You'll see on our channel too, you'll see me grow like a lot of different stuff. And that's just because I'm really curious if I can do it or what it is. I don't have this like compulsion to be like perfect at it, you know. It just seems like a cool thing to grow. I want to see if it's possible. And sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. But I don't know until I try. So that's my hope for you, is you pick your seeds. There's still time, I promise you, to order your seeds from the year if you're going to go from online outlets. I've even seen in like dollar stores near me, they're starting to put seeds out. I live in an agricultural area, so I don't know if that's true where you are, but it's worth looking into. Or if you know where like your town's feed store is, go check that out. I know certainly at least, you know, end of March to beginning, even like through May, a lot of big box stores are going to sell seeds. And different stuff does better the longer or shorter season it is in. I think days to maturity is a good starting point, but you got to figure out what's going to work. Like, as soon as I can get some soil for the back, probably at the end of the month, I'm going to start my root vegetables, you know, like beets, parsnips, carrots, turnips. I'm going to be direct sowing those. You can see I did not do them here because I do not like transplanting in my experience. I've seen people do it. It's just it hasn't worked for me, so I don't do it. So where I am, I'm going to put those out at the end of the month. These peppers will stay inside till about the end of May, beginning of June, and then they'll go out in the garden. I'm going to start tomatoes at the end of the month. Still, those are going to stay inside till the end of May, beginning of June. when I want to like harvest stuff for the fall, I'll probably plant all that in July. I go over this in a different video, but find people who grow stuff in your zone or your state, or if they're in like your side of the state or in your country, and figure out when people start what, and then trying that for yourself and doing trial and error. Like, okay, you know, everyone near me starts lettuce like all the time at this like same week every year, and every time I do it, it seems like, you know, it's a bit too late to like get anything out of it. Start it earlier. Like, there's no hard and fast rules in gardening. Everything is adaptable. And, you know, worst case, you got to get some more seeds and try again. Or if you miss your window and you got to do it next year, well, now you know for next year. Write yourself a note. But I hope you keep experimenting. I'm going to go because apparently I've been sitting here and talking for over an hour. And I got stuff to do. I got all this on here. I'm going to give it a mist. Put it back under our lights that are on a 16 on, 8 off light cycle. I usually do 15 hours, like I said earlier. But I got to get myself a new timer, so I'm just unplugging it when I go to work. I hope you have a lovely Thursday and the end of your night. If you're catching this later on as a replay, thanks for checking it out. We'll have a new video out on YouTube on Tuesday. Hopefully the weather cooperates and I can finally prune our trees in the back. I've been trying to do this for like 2 weeks and then it keeps snowing. We'll see what happens. But with that, have a good night and take care. Bye, and thank you for joining me.